You're listening to the Oddscast, the original UFC betting podcast that's straight to the point. Hosted by leading MMA oddsmaker Nick Kalikas and MMA journalist Brian Hemminger. They provide you the absolute best UFC betting info, picks, statistics, and analysis from the most respected authority in mixed martial arts betting. MMAOddsBreaker.com. Don't place your wagers without us.
Welcome to the Oddscast, presented by BetDSI. I'm Brian Hemminger, joined today by leading mixed martial arts oddsmaker Nick Kalikas to break down this Saturday's UFC 248 event, which takes place in Las Vegas, Nevada. If you're unfamiliar with our format, Nick and I will break down the fight card from top to bottom, providing extensive analysis and a pick for each fight after doing our film study for the event. Looking back, Kyle Marley won 0.05 units for UFC on ESPN Plus 27 after going 3-2 on his premium bets. Kyle has his bets and fantasy MMA picks available now on MMAOddsBreaker.com. Back to the present, UFC 248 features a 12-fight card in total and will be aired on ESPN Plus, ESPN, and pay-per-view this Saturday night. Let's dive right in. Now, kicking things off on ESPN Plus is a bantamweight contest between Guido Canetti, who is 8-4, and Dana Batgarel, who is 7-2. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
As always, a couple quick shout-outs before we get rolling here. Thank you to our sponsor, BetDSI.eu. Make sure you guys go check those guys out. Also, UFC on the Line for UFC 248 will be available, so make sure you head over to UFC Fight Pass and check out our betting preview show. It's a pretty fun show this weekend. Again, a lot of good information, so make sure you check out UFC on the Line on UFC Fight Pass for UFC 248. And also, as Brian just mentioned, make sure you head over to MMAOddsBreaker.com, click on our Premium Picks tab, and check out Big Marley 3's Premium Picks. Right now, he's got 3 bets available. He's going to have DraftKings as well. So he's the man. If you want to profit this weekend, make sure you check him out and buy his picks. So getting right into this card, a fun fight to start things off, really, with Batgarel and Canetti. Batgarel open minus 140, Canetti plus 110. And what you're seeing right now is Batgarel minus 141, the comeback at Canetti plus 118. So line margins have tightened up. Batgarel still about, 140 favorite or so. So it seems like a pretty fair opening line and justifiable. I think it is going to be a competitive fight, and realistically it could go either way. And I'm saying that might not be a real popular opinion. I think a lot of people are going to believe Batgarel gets it done here. Canetti is not really popular amongst the MMA bettors out there in most cases, but I'll tell you what, man, he's a tough guy to bet against at times because he is a pretty well-rounded fighter that can bring a lot of problems to the table here. His stand-up's not bad. Obviously, he's an experienced vet right now as well. He can wrestle you. I mean, the downfall of his game, typically speaking, is getting caught on the feet a little bit defensively. He's a little weak, and you can catch his chin and hurt him at times as well. And then, of course, on the ground, you could exploit him there once you got him hurt, especially. But Batgarel is really not that type of fighter. He's not going to look to take this to the ground, but he is going to look to exploit him on the feet. Batgarel does have a lot of power. He's got really good accuracy to go along with that knockout power, and he is the better striker overall. Although defensively, he's not really the best either. So these guys are going to be definitely hitting each other, landing on each other, and having success back and forth. I just think that Batgarel's probably going to land the flush, cleaner punch at one point and get the W here. I just trust his defensively and his chin a little bit more than Canetti, but I think Canetti is definitely going to be game, and that's what makes this a close fight and a tough one to bet. So at the betting window, I'm personally going to stay away from it because Canetti, again, always shows up, and if he doesn't get clipped, it's going to get interesting. But I have to lean with Batgarel. I think the striking probably does get it done in this fight.
Yeah, I think Batgarel's striking also is a big factor. I mean, first off, Canetti's 40 years old. So, I mean, it's incredible. I don't think I've remember a 40-year-old at 135 pounds, maybe once or twice, that have been in the UFC. And he has had some experience in the UFC, but, I think in the stand-up portion here, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. I mean, Batgarel is a very powerful striker, big-time knockout artist, and Canetti is a bit chinny. These reflexes are going to be slower. Unless Canetti can really mix it up, I think Batgarel is probably just going to, just tear him apart in the stand-up. Batgarel is really dangerous, and I just feel like while Canetti does have these flashes where he can showcase some pretty good offense, He also has some issues with his striking defense. And now that he's even older, and has already shown that he's lacking in a little bit of defense and his, chin isn't particularly durable, I feel like it's only a matter of time until Botgarel, lands that big shot and takes him out, especially with Botgarel's history of being a knockout artist at 135 pounds. So Botgarel's also going to be my pick. Now moving up to the featherweight division, we have Jamal Emmers, who is 17-4, taking on Giga Chikadze, who is 8-2. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Emmers open minus 165, Chikadze at plus 135. Right now what we're seeing is currently Emmers minus 192, the comeback on Chikadze at plus 153. So line margins have tightened up, more action coming in Emmers' way. Really, and it's because of his overall complete game. I mean, Emmers is the more complete fighter without a doubt in this spot here against Chikadze. Chikadze is a very good fighter though, and he's improving, obviously training at a good camp. He's actually training with Dariush and crew, that's on, towards the top of this card as well, which is an outstanding type of team member to train with because he has what Chikadze does definitely need, and it's that grappling experience. And that's, again, where his kryptonite is at this point of his career, is definitely getting taken down. So he needs to work on his wrestling defense and he needs to work on his submission defense. And it is getting better fight by fight for sure. Chikadze, what you get with him is an elite level kickboxer striker. He definitely has some accuracy and he definitely has some power and ability to finish the fight. So Emmers is a very complete fighter. The more complete fighter, as I said, his path to victory here, though, is to get this fight to the ground and exploit Chikadze, getting some takedowns, try to take his back and submit him on the floor as well. I mean, that's, again, his path to victory. Emmers isn't bad on the feet. He could definitely do some good things, but it's his wrestling and his ground game that's going to kind of trump Chikadze here. He doesn't want to play the game on the feet with Chikadze. I think if it does stay standing for a long period of time, Chikadze does get the win here, and he probably knocks Emmers out. If there's any kryptonite to Emmers' game, is he has been finished in the past, he has been rocked, and again, defensively, you can't get through to him at times as well. So I think this is going to be an interesting fight for sure. If Emmers is able to utilize his game plan, he'll probably get it done and look good doing so. But if he struggles getting Chikadze down, Chikadze's going to probably light him up. So my pick is Emmers, but all the action coming his way is kind of backing me off a little bit. I wouldn't, as far as the betting window goes, I think Chikadze's getting good enough that he will give Emmers some fits. But I mean, my head tells me Emmers will eventually get this down and probably win because of his ground game. So my pick is Emmers, but again, as the price goes up, I would be cautious out there betting this fight.
What's funny is this fight was originally supposed to be Movsar Evloev against Douglas Silva Andrade, and then Andrade dropped out with an injury, then was replaced by Emmers, and then Evloev dropped out with a motorcycle accident of all things and was replaced by Chikadze. This one's interesting because Emmers looks like he could be pretty nasty. Like he's well-rounded. He's decent on the feet. He's particularly effective with the takedowns and top position and submissions. And that being said, I was a little concerned when he was on Contender Series. He got knocked out by Juicy J, Julian Erosa of all people, with the head kick. But perhaps that was a bit of a fluke because, I mean, it seems like he's had a lot of success in the past. He's beat Corey Sandhagen. He's been on a nice little run here. He recently won a main event at LFA. And then Chikadze, I mean, he's a very dangerous striker. So, first off, if this fight stays standing with Chikadze's glory kickboxing experience, I think Chikadze knocks him out for sure. And the fight starts standing, so he's going to have a chance to knock him out before if Emmers, hesitates in getting this fight to the floor. But that being said, Chikadze gets taken down a lot. He won against Brandon Davis, but he got taken down multiple times, and that's not good because Davis does not have very good offensive wrestling, and that's kind of Emmers' game. So if Davis could take Chikadze down, I think Emmers should be able to easily, and as long as he can take him down, he should be able to keep him down. So I think Emmers wins by submission, possibly in the first round, but if he has any trouble getting this fight to the floor, Chikadze could really punish him, especially since we have already seen Emmers get knocked out in the past on the feet. So if he struggles, Chikadze could not only win on the feet with a decision, but could knock him out. But I think Emmers does submit him. So Emmers is going to be my pick. Now dropping back down, we have a strawweight contest between Emily Whitmire, who is 4-3, and Polyana Viana, who is 10-4. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Viana opened -125, Whitmire -105. And right now what we're seeing is Viana -118, -102. So line margins have tightened up a little bit. And this line has been kind of going back and forth a little bit as well. Not surprised. I mean, this is another tough one. I mean, both these ladies are definitely talented. They can show some really good techniques and flashes of really good fighting at times. But then on the other hand, I mean, we've seen some really bad performances by them as well, or letdowns, especially for Viana. I think, obviously she's on a 3-fight losing skid here. She needs to get back on track. And if she's going to do it, this is kind of a favorable matchup for her with Whitmire, because Viana obviously has the BJJ background. Whitmire isn't exactly a real huge threat on the feet. I mean, her striking is going to be okay. She might have some success against Viana back and forth here. I think both these guys can be competitive on the feet, but it's Whitmire's wrestling and her grappling ability that usually gets it done for her. And Viana, again, is the type of fighter that can excel on the ground at times as well. I think she's a little bit overrated, though, on the ground. But, again, she might be able to catch Whitmire here, because Whitmire is going to want to come down, get this fight to the ground, and try to get top position here and grind her out and maybe even look for submission. So tough, definitely, because I can see both ladies kind of having success during the fight. For me, I'm going to lean a little bit more towards Whitmire, because I think that if she can get this fight to the floor with her wrestling and avoid the submission, she probably edges it out and gets the W on the scorecards here. But again, not a confident one. I've been going kind of back and forth on this myself. Obviously, I'm staying away from it at a betting window. Now, as far as the value goes, if this line goes either one way or the other, you're getting a decent amount of plus money. So if Whitmire turns into a plus 115 underdog, then you can consider her maybe taking a small stag, or vice versa. If Viana flips and she becomes a small underdog as well, then there might be some value there. So it's kind of the line playing game here. But for me, I'm probably going to stay away from it in general as well, because again, I just don't trust either lady here to get it done. I mean, they both have paths to victory, but I think Whitmire is probably going to be the one, if she can avoid the submissions, that squeaks out the decision. We know ladies' fights in the past have been close. When they hit the scorecards, the judging has been atrocious. So if it does hit the cards, you could see another squeaker. But I'm going to lean a little bit more towards Whitmire here.
And I can understand the Whitmire play. She is going to be, I would say, the more aggressive fighter, but I feel like Viana's the more technical fighter. Whitmire, I've had a lot of difficulty getting these fights correct in the past with either of these two ladies. I've consistently picked against Whitmire when she ends up winning, and then I pick her when she ends up losing. And the same thing has been happening with Viana. So I don't know if you can 100% trust my breakdown here, just because their performances have been so inconsistent and tough to predict, other than Viana's UFC debut, which was a gimme against Maya Stevenson. But with this one, Viana, I feel like she's back at the weight class that she belongs. She had I don't know what she was doing, because she's not exactly a big strawweight, but she moved up to flyweight and lost to Macedo in her last bout, which extended her losing streak to 3. It's just been frustrating, because she just has not performed at the level that I feel she's capable of performing. Granted, she has fought some decent people, but not, amazing fighters. Aldrich, Cyphers, Macedo, none of them are world beaters. And neither's Whitmire. So, I feel like Viana can get the win here. I feel like that she's going to be the more technically sound striker. I feel like she's the more technical grappler, but I'm also concerned that Whitmire is going to be more aggressive. And in women's fights, you often see that the more aggressive fighter can beat the more technical fighter. They can just kind of overcome a technique disadvantage a little bit more often than maybe in men's fights. But that being said, I still think that Viana can win. I also think if there's a stoppage, it's going to be from Viana, because she is the better grappler. But, even though she's a really good grappler, she ended up getting submitted in her last fight, which really surprised me. So, I'm going to pick Viana, but there is very little confidence because I've just been all over the place with both of these women. Now, moving on to the ESPN preliminary card in the middleweight division, we have Darren Wynn, who is 6-1, taking on Gerald Meerschaert, who is 30-12. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Wynn open minus 150, the comeback on Meerschaert at plus 130. And right now what we're seeing is currently Wynn minus 147, the comeback on Meerschaert at plus 123. So line margins have tightened up. And there is two-way action coming in this fight, really, because Wynn is getting some support, obviously, and then Meerschaert getting that dog action back. So there's going to continue to be two-way action. I mean, Wynn is obviously one of these guys that came into the UFC with a lot of hype, training at AKA with the wrestling background, a lot of good things to like about Wynn. But he's been underperforming and underachieving, really, overall. A lot of people, I think, are let down by his overall game and his style, I guess, overall. He's not as impressive as everybody thought. But, I mean, to his credit, he's been in there with some decent competition overall, or tricky fights at least, including the Tom Lawler fight, obviously, that he had before the UFC fight. I mean, he's been in there with some experienced competition and decent competition, so he's not going to perform relatively well. A lot of people actually thought he might have lost that Lawler fight before he got in his UFC debut. But that said, his debut win against Spicely, he did what he had to do. Again, not a tremendous performance, but Spicely so dangerous and his aspect of things on the ground as well. So he fought a pretty smart fight. Now, following that up with his loss against Stewart, Stewart's very underrated. Again, disappointing performance though overall from Wynn. So this fight, he needs to win and get back, I think, in the eye of the public if he's going to have any shot of kind of making a run here at all in this weight class. So he's obviously very undersized. With his height, I mean, he's a powerful guy. He's got that wrestler's build again, so he's more than capable to make up for it in other ways. But Meerschaert's going to physically be the guy towering over Wynn in this spot. He's going to be longer. He's going to be the better, I guess, more experienced overall mixed martial artist. Although I do think Wynn is a little bit more clean on the feet, and I think his boxing can be successful against Meerschaert here. Although Meerschaert's striking has looked improved, and again, training with Duke Rufus and crew, of course, you're going to improve your striking game. But for Meerschaert, where it's at, obviously, is the ground game. And if Wynn wants to take this to the ground and scramble around with Meerschaert or try to get top position, Meerschaert's so sneaky good that Wynn could find himself in some serious trouble here on the ground. So this is not an easy bet here either, because I do think Wynn probably does enough to edge this fight out. I think he could beat Meerschaert up on the feet a little bit, use that speed, use that power, and mark Meerschaert up a little bit. But again, Meerschaert has paths to victory in this fight. I think he can, if this fight hits the floor, give Win a lot of fits with the submission game. And I mean, if he grabs your neck, you're in some serious trouble. And then again, with that reach, even on the feet, Win isn't exactly, the best striker at 185 pounds. So even Meerschaert can probably be competitive at times with Win on feet as well. So this is going to be a tough fight. For me, at the betting window, I wouldn't lay the chalk here, even though I am going to pick Win to win. I do believe that he should get this W. Like I said, I think his striking and his game plan overall should prevail here, but it's not a confident pick. So, for me, another interesting fight, and I can't wait to see how it plays out. But if anybody needs a win, it's, pardon the pun, but it's definitely Darren Wynn. So he needs to get it done here. The pick for me is Wynn.
And I'm going to come in the other way. Now, it's been also difficult for me to get some of Meerschaert's fights correct. I thought he's lost 2 split decisions in his last 2 losses. He's lost to Eric Anders and Kevin Holland, 2 guys that were supposed to be, I would think, way better than him on the feet. And Meerschaert has, shown historically that he was terrible on the feet, but he has made some improvements there. I thought that he was actually very competitive with Eric Anders on the feet in his last fight. You could argue that he won that fight. And he had no business being competitive on the feet against Anders, at least historically, because that's pretty much what Anders does best by a landslide. And Meerschaert is by far a better grappler than he is a striker, but he's definitely made some improvements in that department. And while I don't expect him to be knocking anybody out, I do think that he can be competitive with people that at least he has a big physical advantage against. And he has a massive physical advantage in this fight against Darren Wynn. Even though Meerschaert's not a great striker, he is going to be, I believe, 7 inches taller, He's going to have a 7.5 reach advantage, and he's tough, so he can take a shot. So even though Wynn is probably going to be able to avoid being put on his back because he is a very stout, low center of gravity type of fighter, I think Meerschaert, even if it stays standing the whole fight, he's shown that he can actually be mildly competitive when he's not facing elite strikers. I mean, Thiago Santos lit him up, but Darren Wynn is no Thiago Santos. So I think Meerschaert actually has a very reasonable opportunity here to not just win, but win on the feet of all things. So even though he's not a particularly great stand-up fighter, I think with the physical advantages that he's going to be having, I think that he can take advantage of it. So I'm going to side with Meerschaert. I think the small gains that he's shown in his stand-up are going to be enough to potentially outmaneuver Wynn, especially with the big physical advantages he has in terms of height and reach. So Meerschaert's going to be my pick. Now, sticking with the middleweight division, we have Rodolfo Vieira, who is 6-0, taking on Saparbeg Safarov, who is 9-2. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Vieira opened minus 200, the comeback on Safarov, plus 160. And right now we're looking over at DSI, and we're seeing minus 714, the comeback on Safarov, plus 499. So line margins have tightened up, and a ton of action coming in on Vieira here. Of course, not a surprise. I mean, stylistically, this is a nightmare match for Safarov. Vieira has all the hype. It's stylistically, I mean, I won't spend a lot of time on this fight because I mean, it's pretty clear cut. Vieira has to get this fight to the floor. Safarov needs to keep off his back and try to pick Vieira off on the feet and have success doing so that way, and probably try to finish him that way. So Safarov needs to be the striker here, avoid the ground at all costs, even though he does have a little bit of a ground game, but in this spot, it's not where he wants to be. And of course, like I said, Vieira, he's getting better in his striking game, but the ground is where it's at. He's going to look to take this fight to the floor. And once he gets this fight to the floor, it's a wrap. That's why you're seeing everybody take advantage of that minus 200 line. And that's why you're seeing it close to 800 now. And you can't even really touch this fight. So you have to stay away from it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, like I said, on it. I mean, it's grappler versus striker, and you have a very dominant grappler that should get the W here. So my pick is Vieira to win.
As Nick said, this fight boils down to striker versus grappler, and Safarov has already shown that he's very vulnerable to somebody that can take him down and submit him. We've already seen Tyson Pedro get a quick takedown against him and then submit him with a Kimura. Granted, it was 2 years ago, but I think the game plan to defeat Safarov is right there. If Vienna, for some reason, can get the takedown, then he could definitely be in trouble. Or Vieira. Vieira is an extremely talented grappler, but he also is a bit one-dimensional. So, I mean, he's more of a complete Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt artist that transitioned to MMA. Not much of a striker. I mean, if he's going to be doing much striking, it's pretty much going to be with takedowns and ground and pound from top position, not trading blows on the feet. If he does that for extended periods of time, he's going to lose. But I don't think he's that dumb. So he's going to look for takedowns, try to put Safarov on his back, and the second he does, it's probably going to be a wrap. So Vieira is going to be my pick. Now, dropping down to the lightweight division, we have Marc Madsen, who is 9-0, taking on Austin Hubbard, who is 11-3. Now, Nick, what's the MMA Oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Madsen minus 750, Hubbard plus 450. That was the opening line, and totally the opposite way we were just talking about with Vieira getting steamed up to minus 800. So he opened almost minus 800, and he got steamed down. Right now, the betting line is Madsen minus 213, the comeback on Hubbard at plus 174. So again, drastic drop in price, and I understand it. I mean, minus 750 for Madsen facing his toughest opponent to date in Hubbard. Ridiculous. I mean, you guys have to scoop up plus 450 at that price, no doubt about it. So those of you guys that got in at the early plus money, hats off to you because you guys got tremendous value. That said, this is going to be a difficult fight for Hubbard as well. I mean, Madsen is legit, the Olympian as they call him. I mean, he's got that wrestling background. He doesn't have quite the experience or the resume overall as far as level competition that Hubbard's faced, but he's getting there, and he's definitely proven that he can go out there and do some great things with his wrestling ability and with that overall experience that he is getting. I mean, his stand-up is getting better. He's got power. He's got that wrestler's power on the feet, of course. He pushes forward. But again, make no mistake, it's Madsen's wrestling and ground and pound where it's at. I mean, the guy's as a beast on the floor. Now, Hubbard is the more well-rounded fighter. I think overall, he's a little bit better. I mean, he's the more complete mixed martial artist for sure. He's got a wrestling background in his own right. He's got some decent striking. I think here, if he's able to keep this fight on the feet, he could do some damage along the way to Madsen, and that's probably his path to victory. Kind of use his wrestling in reverse, keep this fight upright, and try to land the heavier shots along the way and bust Madsen up. Possibly even try to look for a sub along the way if he gets his back or something like that, reverse position, and try to scramble and make it a bad spot for Madsen. So Hubbard is going to be very game, and he's going to be a very difficult opponent for Madsen. I think this is definitely his toughest test, as I said, but I do believe he's going to get it done, though. I think Madsen is going to be too much for him. I think Hubbard has had some problems against ground fighters in the past that we've seen, and this is going to be no exception here. I think Madsen does eventually get this fight to the ground and start grinding out Hubbard. Hubbard's tough, though. It's going to be hard to finish Hubbard, but I think Madsen does enough to probably edge out a decision win here. And maybe even get a late stoppage as it goes. But I think Hubbard is tough enough to probably withstand that. So I think Madsen is going to impress again and get the hardest victory, but a deserving victory here in this spot. And it's going to be wrestling that's key here. So my pick is Madsen. And again, good value on the opening price, but as it stands right now at around 2-1 or so, like I said, minus 220-ish, 213, there could be some value on Madsen. So you might want to look to include Madsen in a parlay or two along the way. It might not be a bad idea because, like I said, I think he really should get this W, but it is going to be a tough fight.
And I'm right with you. I mean, Madsen is a very decorated Greco-Roman wrestler, Olympic medalist. So you know that he's going to be coming into this fight with the ability to completely dominate if he can get his hands on Hubbard and drag him to the canvas. As long as he doesn't leave anything exposed, for like an easy submission attempt. I expect that once he closes the distance, it's going to be a really tough night for Hubbard. As you mentioned, though, Hubbard is very tough. The guy is a standout LFA fighter. Had some pretty impressive performances there. But his problem was he took on a really good grappler in his UFC debut, got out grappled. So, and then he had to use his own wrestling in his last fight to get the win. That's not going to help him here. I really don't think that he has the technical wrestling chops to hang with Madsen. So for Hubbard to win, he needs to either latch on to some sort of submission with Madsen making a mistake, or somehow keep this fight upright and try to outstrike Madsen. But Madsen looked amazing in his last fight, but he was also facing a completely overmatched opponent. So he could be overrated. That's happened plenty of times in the past where somebody had an amazing UFC debut and then they're not even close to as good as we thought they were. So that being said, I still think Madsen gets the job done. Maybe he'll be exposed as he steps up in competition against some tougher opponents, but I don't think Hubbard's the guy to do it. I think Madsen keeps rolling. I think he gets top position. I think he just starts beating down on Hubbard and either wins a decision or potentially a ground and pound TKO. So Madsen is my pick. Now moving on to the main event of the preliminary card in the bantamweight division, we have Sean O'Malley, who is 10-0, taking on Jose Quinones, who is 8-3. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
O'Malley opened minus 350, Quinones plus 275. Right now, what we're seeing is currently Quinones still the underdog plus 285, so O'Malley minus 357. So it did drop a little bit. O'Malley was down to like 300 for a while. Now it's climbed back up to around the opening spot. So it seems like it's a decent opening public line. I'll tell you what, man, Quinones is definitely going to be a handful for O'Malley. He's going to be one of the toughest fights he's had. He's gotten a lot better. I mean, since the Ultimate Fighter show that he was on. he brings a lot to the table because you can't sleep on his striking. He's a powerful guy. He has got a good ground game to go along with it, always improving. But I think he's just outclassed here by O'Malley. Again, going through footage and going through, I know O'Malley's had some time off now, so that's something to consider right away. I should get that out of the way. But overall, I think O'Malley's the better striker here. I think he's the better grappler here. Wrestling's going to be close. O'Malley can get put on his back at times, but I think his takedown defense and his scrambling ability and his offensive wrestling could be problems for Quinones as well. So overall, I do think that O'Malley is just clearly better. I think O'Malley probably finds a finish along the way, either subs Quinones on the floor after, like I said, it could be an ensuing scramble, or I think Quinones can put it on, or can end up getting clipped enough along the way by O'Malley that O'Malley outpoints him and maybe even finishes him on the feet before it hits the scorecards as well. So again, I just think that this is a really good matchup for O'Malley, even though it will be competitive at times. I just don't see Quinones winning on the scorecards. I think he probably gets finished here as well. So another type of spot where anything under 4-1, there might be a little bit of value on O'Malley. I know, again, straight plays when you're laying 4-1 at times is a little bit, you got to be a little bit tentative at that. But again, if there's going to be one, I think a small bet straight on O'Malley could be justified here. Again, under 4-1, or you want to throw him in a parlay, it wouldn't be a bad idea either. So there is a little bit of value if you're getting him under 4-1. I do believe, again, I respect Quinones. I think he's a solid fighter, but O'Malley should roll here. So my pick is O'Malley. And again, I think he probably gets it done inside the distance as well.
And I'm right with you. O'Malley is the better fighter here. I think he's better on the ground. I think he's better on the feet. He's got more power. He's a little bit more dynamic. Quinones is well-rounded. He also has a little bit of pop. And he could surprise you. The main issue I have is just that we haven't seen O'Malley in a while. He had issues with drug tests. He's been out for pretty much 2 years because of suspensions. So if he's rusty, I think that's really the biggest issue. Because if he's at the top of his game like he was before getting injured and then having his issues with the drug testing, then I don't think Quinones is even close to at his level. O'Malley is definitely a very good fighter, and I think it's going to be a lot tougher opponent that's going to be the one that finally hands him that first loss. But if O'Malley comes out real rusty and slow and tentative and just isn't quite comfortable in there, then Quinones, I think, could take advantage. But I think O'Malley's got the chin to handle Quinones' power. I think O'Malley's faster. I think O'Malley's the more powerful striker. I think O'Malley's the better grappler. Maybe Quinones can get takedowns, but even if he does that, O'Malley could submit him, as Nick said. So I just think O'Malley is the better fighter just about in every position except potentially wrestling. So perhaps Quinones could try a lay-and-pray game plan, but even that I think would be difficult to succeed here. So I'm going to side with O'Malley. I think that he does win by stoppage at some point, whether it's submission or TKO. And I think it's most likely going to be a TKO because he's going to flash some really good power on the feet. And I think that the UFC really wants to showcase him here as the lead-in for the pay-per-view. So O'Malley's going to be my pick. Now moving on to the pay-per-view, the main card, we have a welterweight contest between Alex Oliveira, who is 28-1, taking on Max Griffin, who is 15-7. Now, Nick, what's the MMA Oddsmakers perspective on this one?
Oliveira open minus 215, the comeback on Griffin at plus 175. And right now what we're seeing over at DSI is currently Oliveira minus 141, the comeback on Griffin at plus 118. So line margins have tightened up a little bit, more action coming in Griffin's way. That is the way to bet this fight, especially at the opening price at plus 175. This is going to be a competitive fight. I think if Oliveira doesn't get out there and just clip Griffin early on, or, jump on his back or give him some kind of fits inside the distance here early in round one, then it's going to probably be a tough fight for Oliveira. And I think Griffin is the one that's the more complete fighter. I think he's more technically sound. I think he's a better overall fighter in general. Now, again, Oliveira is the more dangerous fighter, but Griffin's stand up, he could do some damage. He could come in there, and if his chin lasts defensively, he could be good and strike with the best of them. I mean, he's proven that. He's been in there with a lot of decent competition, a lot of heavy strikers, and he's fared relatively well, but he is a bit chinny again, I say. So he could be looking good, and then all of a sudden a punch gets through and he gets clipped. And Oliveira is a very dangerous, unorthodox fighter, so that could easily happen here in this spot. But again, technically speaking, Griffin's a better fighter. I think Griffin can actually probably beat Oliveira on the ground as it goes in round 2 and round 3 as well. Again, Oliveira is going to be the one kind of gassing a little bit more as the fight progresses. He does have that. He doesn't have that steady performance that you'd like to see out of him. Now, Griffin's been up and down in his own right as well, but he's fought some solid competition, and he's been underrated throughout his whole UFC career as well. So a tough fight. Again, if it's going to be a finish, probably is Oliveira, but if it hits the scorecards, I think Griffin does get it. And again, potentially he can get a finish as it goes as well. I wouldn't be shocked. But at the finish here, it's more likely to be Oliveira. But again, at the price, I wouldn't lay chalk. Even at the price right now at about 140 or so, I still think it's a dog or pass situation. So my pick is Griffin. And if you're going to bet this fight, I wouldn't lay the chalk here.
Yeah, both of these fighters have been so inconsistent, and neither has particularly been effective in recent fights. It's tough to side with either one. I mean, I thought Alex Oliveira was potentially a player at the welterweight division when he was on a nice little roll. He'd won, I believe, 4 in a row, and then he just started to run out of steam. He was even at 6 out of 7. But now seems like he's been getting exposed a little bit. You know, Gunnar Nelson toyed with him and got a choke. And then Mike Perry and Nicholas Dalby both, ended up beating him by decision. And I think I picked him in both fights. So I've been feeling pretty dumb siding with Alex Oliveira. He's also been having some issues with his personal life. I think that could be affecting his fighting career as well. I just think, while Alex Oliveira is the more well-rounded fighter compared to Griffin, he has his flaws. Oliveira is potentially a little chinnier. He also has worse conditioning. Oliveira slows down in fights. So if Oliveira can't get off to a good start here, I don't see how he can win, because the longer this goes, I think the worse shape he'll be in. Griffin's not a great fighter, but he gets into close, scrappy, tough fights against pretty good fighters. Granted, if this stays standing and it's just down to pure technique and neither fighter gets really tired, Oliveira can probably win. Griffin loses consistently. He lost to Alex Morano in his last fight. That's a fight that he probably should have been able to win, but he definitely can be outstruck, even though that's kind of his game. So I think this potentially could even be a loser leaves town fight, even though it's a pay-per-view main card opener. But, I think I'm going to side with Max Griffin. It feels like something's off with Oliveira lately. Either he's in decline or there's something going on with him. I think, if Oliveira can't get off to a big lead in this fight or potentially a finish, I think, Griffin just kind of wears him down. And I definitely see Griffin winning the 3rd round if it goes to decision. So, and that always makes me nervous when you have a fighter that has a history of slowing down, taking on somebody that, doesn't really, fade. So I think, Griffin comes on strong late and potentially wins a decision or a TKO here. So Griffin's going to be my pick. Now, sticking with the welterweight division, we have Neil Magny, who is 21-7, taking on Jingling Li, who is 17-5. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
Jinglong opened minus 270, the comeback on Magny at plus 210. And right now what we're seeing over at DSI is minus 179 on Jinglong, comeback on Magny plus 148. So line margins have tightened, a little bit more action coming in from the opening line on Magny as a dog. I understand it. Again, at plus 210, it is definitely tempting to take a stab at Magny. Now, again, the situation here is you have Jinglong that has been fighting amazing. I mean, the guy looks like he's at the top of his game right now. A tremendous win he's coming off of. I mean, the knockout of Zaleski, I was shocked, honestly. I didn't think it was going to go down like that. I thought if anything, it would be the other way around. But again, I mean, he's riding this hot streak right now. He's very confident. He definitely has that power in his hands that you have to respect. And Magny's a bit chinny. We've seen that through his whole career. So stylistically, this could be a very nightmare matchup for Magny. I mean, Jinglong, again, his takedown defense holds up here, and if he fights a smart, patient fight, he can clip Magny along the way. Magny is the better overall fighter, though. He is definitely the more complete fighter. He's got that reach. He's got that range. He knows how to use it fairly well. He's got good movement. He's definitely a good point fighter. Now, he got a little bit underrated power on the feet. You can't really sleep on him completely, but I don't think that's going to be as much of a threat. I think Magny's path to victory here is kind of draping Jinglong, get him to the floor, tripping him down, and just kind of draping over him, using that length and reach to make it a misery for Jinglong on the ground as well. And Magny definitely has a better submission game, and he's capable of winning this fight on the ground. So that's where Magny's path to victory is. If you can get Jinglong on the floor and obviously take advantage of that and utilize his extremely well-rounded game, then I think he could probably get it done. But along the way, it's going to be tough, and I don't really trust Magny at this point of his career. Jinglong is kind of on the rise. I do believe that it's his time right now to kind of win a fight like this. I mean, in this spot, this is a good test for him. And maybe in the past, I think it would be a letdown for him, but he's ready for this fight. I mean, he's, again, with everything, the track record that he's had and his slow progression here, I think if he continues that, he wins this fight. So, again, you could tell it's not a really overly confident pick for me because I think Magny is a better overall fighter. So it's tough because I can see Magny possibly winning this fight on the ground. But overall, as far as a pure pick, I'm going to go with Jinglong. I think he is kind of coming into his own. He's got the confidence right now. And stylistically, this could be a nightmare matchup for Magny. So the pick is Jinglong.
And I completely agree. Magny definitely has his paths to victory because he has the longest reach in the welterweight division, and he does have a decent jab. So I would say if he can keep Jinglong at the end of that jab or mix in a bunch of takedowns, then he can definitely win this fight. I mean, that was kind of his secret to success that turned him into a fringe contender at welterweight, where he was consistently outpointing people, just annoying them almost, and then at some point they would just really start to slow down, and Magny has a tremendous conditioning, and he would just take over late in fights. And it was really fun to watch. That being said, he also has issues with his durability. I mean, when he gets hit hard, he just cannot take it. He also has issues checking leg kicks. So, I mean, he can really get hurt with somebody that goes attacks the legs and somebody that attacks the head. As long as they're accurate, he can be in big trouble. So, I feel like with Jinglong and how powerful he is and the massive improvements he's made in his technical skills, because he's not just a brawler anymore, he can wing it. Particularly impressed with the performance against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. I mean, I thought Zaleski was a player at 170, and Jinglong was able to take him out. So that instantly turned me into a serious Jinglong fan. So I think Jinglong Li connects at some point with Neil Magny and takes him out. But there definitely is a path to victory here for Magny. He just needs to be extremely careful, because one mistake and his lights are going out. But I am going to side with Jinglong because, especially with the long layoff, I just don't think that Magny's going to be able to fight that perfect fight without leaving an opening for Jinglong to take advantage of, especially with the improvements Jinglong has made. So Jinglong Li is my pick. Now, dropping down to the lightweight division, we have Beneil Dariush, who is 17-4-1, taking on Drakkar Klose, who is 11-1-1. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
Dariush open minus 155, excuse me. Dariush minus 155, close plus 125. And right now what we're seeing over at DSI is minus 169 for Dariush. The comeback on close at plus 140. So line margins have tightened up a little bit. And again, Dariush getting slightly more action, but there has been two-way action coming into this fight as well. It's been bouncing back and forth a little bit, but we have started to see it rise. And I think it's probably right. I mean, skill for skill, there's no question. Dariush is one of the best lightweights in the world. I mean, the guy is definitely one of the most skilled offensive fighters that I've seen in the weight class. I mean, he can beat you on the feet. He's fought tremendous strikers and has done really well with them. I mean, he has a kicking game. He's got the punching game, everything. I mean, he can beat you with his hands or his feet, basically what I'm trying to say on the feet. And then he mixes that in with his outstanding wrestling, underrated wrestling, his ability to get the fight to the ground in most cases. And then once he's on the floor, he's phenomenal. I mean, the guy has an outstanding jiu-jitsu game. So offensively, again, Dariush is one of the best lightweights that you can possibly get. I mean, everything's there for him, but it's his conditioning. It's his, again, kind of steady performances that we've kind of scratched our heads about. I mean, I don't know. He does tend to slow down as the fight goes on at times. The inconsistent performance bothers me. If he doesn't get the fight done, I mean, you're kind of asking for it when it hits the scorecards because you don't know what you're going to get. He does, like I said, slow down enough that his opponents kind of close the gap on him a little bit. But here in this fight, I think he can have success. And if there's any problem or any kryptonite to his game, it's that chin as well. I mean, it's more of the chin of Dariush that bothers me, even more so than his conditioning at times or that inconsistency that I was talking about. Because defensively, he can't get clipped, he can't get hurt, and Close doesn't really have that kind of crazy knockout power. He's not really a dynamic, explosive, crazy type of striker. So Dariush should be okay in that regard, but Close still has enough knockout power that if he lands, he could definitely rock that chin of Dariush and put him down. So I wouldn't be shocked if that happens here. And that is always a threat and something you have to consider when you're dealing with Dariush. But again, as far as overall fighting skill, Dariush is the better striker in this matchup. I think he probably does get top position on the ground at times as well, and maybe can submit Close. But I think Close is going to be very game. If he can weather that early storm in round one, he's going to probably pick things up in round two, round three, and possibly steal this fight. So it's one of those fights. I'm going to lean with Dariush because, I mean, he is kind of coming into his own again. He's on a little streak here. He's won 3 fights in a row. Maybe we're seeing that spark back in him and we see him do some really good things. Because I think, I mean, again, the guy's a legit title contender one time of his career. He was at the top of the food chain and he was right there in line with the best of them, you know, and he's kind of had some ups and downs. And now, again, he's riding that 3-fight win streak. I think his confidence is there. Hopefully, in the gym, everything's kind of lining up for him as well, because I would like to see him make one last run towards a title shot. That'd be great. I don't know if he's going to get there, but it starts here, so he has to win this fight. My pick is Dariush. He is the better fighter here, but at the betting window, again, as it climbs up, though, I wouldn't necessarily bet this fight. I would probably stay away from it, because as it hits the scorecards, you could be in some trouble here. So the pick for me, Dariush.
Yeah, the thing that scares me with Dariush is he has a tendency to underperform against fighters that are decent wrestlers. I don't know why, but you go back through his career, and when he faces guys that are primarily wrestlers that have a little bit of power or can do damage from top position or something, he's had his issues. You know, Alexander Hernandez was able to blast him in less than a minute. Then you had Michael Chiesa, you know, survive early and then actually submitting him in the second round when he started to slow down. And then you go all the way back. Ramsey Nijim TKO'd him from top position with ground and pound. So there is potentially a path to victory here, definitely for Drakkar Klose, because if Dariush slows down in this fight, Klose can take over. I definitely could see, just like earlier in the card, I could definitely see Klose winning the third round, which again scares me. Dariush also is chinny, even though Klose isn't the most powerful guy, as Nick mentioned. If Dariush starts to slow down, you know, if Klose throws something as hard as he possibly can, which he typically doesn't, and connects with it, he can still knock Dariush out for sure. So that being said, technically, Dariush is definitely the better fighter. I mean, he has elite level grappling, and he fought very smart recently. He was able to get a submission against a very game Drew Dober, March of last year, and then most recently taking on a brawler in Frank Camacho. He did not screw around on the feet whatsoever, even though Darius probably could have outpointed him on the feet because he was the technically superior striker. He just didn't waste time there because why? Why even risk it? On the ground, it wasn't even a contest, and that's exactly what happened. He took it to the ground and quickly submitted Camacho. So, if you're Darius, why screw around? On the feet, yes, he probably is a little bit better. Close does have decent boxing skills, and I think it's competitive in just like the pure stand-up boxing. I think Darius is better with his kicking game, so I think the well-roundedness of Darius and his power should give him a slight edge, but if he gets clipped, it's anybody's game on the feet. On the ground, he is so nasty with his submissions. Even though Close is a strong wrestler, I think if Darius can just get a hold of him, he can just start wrapping him up in something. So, that being said, I'm a little nervous with him getting into the ground just because Close does have the strong wrestling. Maybe Darius is going to struggle trying to get this to the floor. So there's going to be some caution here just because Darius slows down, Darius is chinny, and he's facing a wrestler who's possibly going to be difficult to take down. And if he's forced to stand for 3 straight rounds, he can win that, but that chin is going to be vulnerable for 3 straight rounds. And the fact that he slows down always makes me nervous. So I'm going to side with Darius. It does seem like he's fighting smart, that he's back, but I have a lot of difficulty trusting him at this point in his career. So the pick is Darius, but again, be careful out there. Now, moving on to the co-main event of the evening, we have a women's strawweight title fight between champion Weili Zhang, who is 20-1, taking on former champion Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who is 16-3. Now, Nick, where did this fight open, and how has the public shifted things so far?
My opening line was Zhang minus 130. The comeback on Joanna, even money. Right now, what we're seeing over at DSI is currently Zhang minus 169. The comeback on Joanna at plus 142. So line margins have tightened up quite a bit, and we're seeing some action coming in on Zhang. I'm surprised, obviously, with my opening line being at minus 130 even money. I think that's about right. I mean, anything above even money for JJ, I think you have to take a stab at it. I mean, I understand Zhang has looked phenomenal. I mean, in her 4 UFC fights, she's definitely looked the part. She's worthy of being in this spot here and winning the title. I mean, how she destroyed Andrade in her last fight was phenomenal. I mean, nobody expected it to be that quick. I mean, I bet Zhang in her last fight, so I was expecting her to win, but I didn't expect her to just go out there and destroy Andrade like she did. Again, a lot of people are commenting on Andrade's game plan, and that's pretty true as well. I mean, you gotta kind of take that in consideration. This is a different type of matchup, but a lot of people, I think, are seeing Zhang's power and looking at JJ in the past where Joanna has been clipped. Obviously that Rose loss still sits fresh in people's minds as far as Joanna being a little bit chinny. She's been, rocked in the past as well. So I think that's kind of her, her downfall right now. A lot of people believe that she's going to get clipped by that Zhang power and she's not going to be able to handle it. And that's why she's going to get beaten. I think a lot of the action, again, the recency bias that's coming in on Zhang is ridiculous to the point where, that's where the line is. And I'm shocked. I mean, like I said, I think all the sharp action, including some public action, is going to come in back on JJ. And we're going to see this line drop as we get closer to fight time as well. Because if this fight does play out in the scorecards, this is going to be an extremely competitive fight. I know Zhang will be in there. She's quick. She's powerful. She has good footwork. She's got good, wrestling and ground technique as well. You cannot sleep on this girl anywhere. So she's definitely a complete fighter. And this is going to be a heck of a fight. But I think JJ can be winning this fight as well. I mean, I think if she weathers that early storm in round 1, she will probably adapt to start taking over round 2, round 3. She's the one that in round 4, round 5 is actually picking up the pace against her opponents at times. So you cannot be in the cage with JJ and have a moment of letdown because she's going to be on top of you. She's going to be the one that's hitting those precision strikes, pushing the pace. Even I wouldn't be surprised if JJ gets a takedown in this fight and gets top position. She's got to be careful because, again, Zhang showed us some good off her back as well, but this is going to be a close fight, a toss-up type of fight. That's why I think the value at plus money is on JJ. You have to go that way. You cannot lay the chalk here. I mean, I don't care if Zhang ends up winning this fight. I mean, if she does, obviously, I mean, it's another feather in her cap, and she's going to be a very well-deserving champion, you know, very well-respected, deserving champion for sure. No doubt about it. Even if she loses this fight, I mean, there's hats off to her. She's in there at the top of the game right now, fighting against one of the best ever in the weight class. So not a bad loss, even if she, you know, comes away with a loss here in this spot. But overall, every way you look at it, I mean, again, if JJ does not get sparked early, she probably hangs in there and I think wins on the card. So I'm going to go with JJ. I wouldn't even be surprised if we see Joanna take this into deep waters and have enough success that maybe she gets even Zhang in trouble in the later rounds. I mean, we haven't seen her tested that much. So this is going to prove a lot to me. So I'm going to pick JJ. I obviously bet it already. I mean, there's a video out there of me hitting her like plus 130-ish, plus 140-ish, I believe. So again, anything in plus money though is worth a stab. So it doesn't even have to be plus 130. It can be plus 110. I think there's value on JJ at that price as well. So the bet is JJ. I think, you know, like I said, I mean, the path to victory is clearly there for her. People are just underestimating her at this point. I'm kind of surprised, but I do think she can get this done. So the value's there, the bet's there, and my pick is going to be on Joanna to get it done as well.
The value may be on Joanna, but I still believe in Zhang. I was blown away by her performance against Andrade. Now, perhaps Andrade was a little overrated because while she's powerful and throws a lot of volume on the feet, she's really not that technical. And she has been exposed in the past by more technically sound strikers like Joanna when she originally challenged for the belt. And she was getting lit up by Rose when she ended up beating Rose with a slam, but she was getting smoked on the feet there too. So it's not a huge shock that Zhang was able to knock her out and finish her quickly. So that being said, I'm really impressed with Zhang's technique. And even though Joanna is a tall, long striker and has showcased elite ability to keep fighters at the end of her punches, I think Joanna isn't going to have quite as much success like she did against Andrade in the past. Andrade is a little bit more of a bull rusher. Zhang is a lot more technical. Like, she is a very effective striker, good hands, good feet, and she does mix in takedowns as well. So I'd be very surprised if Joanna got a takedown in this fight. I think if anybody gets a takedown, it's going to be Zhang. Like, she does a really good job of throwing combinations, and then boom, the second your hands are up defending, changing levels. So I think that she's going to be able to mix things up really well with Joanna. I think on the feet, this is going to be competitive. Rose has already shown that a very good technically sound striker can counter really well against Joanna, even just staying in the pocket. And especially if you sit down on your strikes, you can do some damage against Jędrzejczyk because she does have a bit of a vulnerable chin. And that's something that Zhang definitely can take advantage of because she has some power. So I like Zhang. I think that she's young, she's on the rise, she's dangerous. While Joanna is extremely talented, and the longer this fight goes, we could potentially see it turn in Jędrzejczyk's favor because conditioning and durability, conditioning and pace perhaps favor her a little bit more. But I really think that Zhang might be somebody that could be champion for a while. She does have a strong, well-rounded game. She's dangerous, and I feel like her defense and everything is just right up there with Joanna's in terms of offense, defense, everything. And she's more durable, and she's younger. So I think that Zhang is the future, and while perhaps the value's not on her, I do think that she's definitely somebody worth picking. So I'm going to side with Zhang. Now, moving on to the main event of the evening, we have Israel Adesanya, the UFC middleweight champion, putting his belt on the line against Yoel Romero. Adesanya is 18-0, Romero is 13-4. Now, Nick, what's the MMA oddsmaker's perspective on this one?
I open Adesanya minus 200, the comeback on Romero plus 160. And right now what we're seeing over at DSI is Adesanya minus 270, the comeback on Romero plus 216. Market price out there, 280s, plus 230s, so plus 240s. I'm shocked. I mean, like I said, this is another spot where obviously I'm surprised a little bit. I mean, I know the hype and the respect factor for Adesanya is through the roof, especially since that Whitaker win. I mean, honestly, we told you on the show at UFC 243 on the line show, that he was going to probably pull that off. I mean, the precision, the accuracy, everything about Adesanya's game, the improvement. I mean, the guy is a special talent. There's no question about it, but that was a pick'em type of price. So this is not a pick'em type of price. Now you're nearly laying 3-1 over a guy in Romero that is one of the best middleweights and has been for a long time in the world, and one of the most devastating strikers. And I'm not talking about the technical striking skill. I'm talking about explosive, just with any limb. I mean, he hit you with an elbow, hit you with that big left hook, hit you with a right hook. That knee, of course, we've seen him put people out. This guy has serious power. People call him a piece of steel. Even if you're going in on offense with this guy and you're landing on him, I mean, it physically is tough on your body. Just, his body, he is like a piece of steel. I mean, that's what you hear from fighters time and time again. So what I'm trying to say here is Adesanya, technically speaking, for sure, he's going to have some reach. He's going to have some physical attributes. He's a younger fighter. There's all sorts of things to like about Adesanya in this spot. I do think he's going to have success on the feet here against Romero, especially utilizing his kicking game. I think that could be problematic for Romero here, but at some point in this fight, I think Romero is going to kind of lull Adesanya to sleep, and he's going to explode. And when he lands, Adesanya has been rocked in the past. We've seen it. He's had fits against Gaslam. I mean, here's the thing. People are forgetting that Adesanya has looked normal at times. I mean, he hasn't kind of been exactly what everybody expects him to be. Now, he's gotten better, and he's shown improvements, I mean, at a rapid pace, so I do respect that. But he's vulnerable. I mean, he's human. The guy, like I said, Gaslam's a shorter fighter. You could compare, I mean, you can't really compare Romero to Gaslam. Romero's more of a freak than Gaslam is, but I'm just talking about, like, as far as reach advantages for Adesanya here. I mean, comparable, you would think, oh, he's going to have an easy time with this short guy. No, I mean, he had a difficult time with Gaslam. He's going to have a difficult time here, even though they're different type of fighters. Romero closes that gap so fast. He's got that wrestling in his back pocket as well. I know Adesanya's takedown defense has gotten a lot better. His ground game, we've even seen really solid stuff from him on the ground, even if he does get put on his back, with the ability to throw up some submissions. So Adesanya is definitely an awesome fighter, and including the ground, he's getting better to the point where it's catching up, not to his striking. It'll never catch up to his striking, but it is getting better. You have to be cautious about Adesanya, even off his back. That said, Romero probably will get him down at some point. He's not going to go for a lot of takedowns. That's just not his style. He does like to kind of, like I said, lull his opponents to sleep and just explode on them. But he does have that. You have to worry about that takedown ability, that Olympic caliber wrestler. And you're going to be tentative at times because of that as well. So combine all that with Adesanya being hittable, being able to get rocked in past fights as well. What we've seen, he's been knocked out in a kickboxing match as well. So it's not like this guy is totally invincible. I mean, he's got some durability issues at times as well. And I think the wrong person to fight is Romero, if that's the question here, especially if you're going to lay 3 times your money or close to it against Romero. That's not the smart bet. If Adesanya wins this fight, fine. That's okay. I understand it. But we're talking about value betting here. And at this price, anything above plus 200, there's definitely some value on Romero. Again, people are counting him out. They're saying he shouldn't even be in the spot. He's coming off losses. Let's look at it a little bit. I mean, those Whitaker bouts were close. They were extremely competitive. He could be champion coming off those fights if we had different judges, right? Not just that Costa fight in his last fight was also close. I'm not saying Costa didn't deserve to win that fight, but it was extremely close. And if Costa couldn't step in here and fight this fight, there's nobody else I'd rather see than Romero take on Adesanya. Now, Adesanya even went out there and basically said, I have to beat Romero if I want to really solidify my legacy. That type of fight for him as well. He knows it. I mean, so Romero is a threat. It's not crazy to think he could pull this win off, even by knockout. Even on the scorecards, I do think if this fight hits the scorecards and it goes 5, it's going to be a 48-47 type of decision fight as well. It's not going to be a clear cut and dry win for Adesanya. I think Romero will be able to steal rounds. So it will hit the scorecards close. It will be a tough test for Adesanya on the feet with the explosiveness explosiveness of Romero as well. But of course, it will be a tough fight for Romero. He's got a lot to worry about for Adesanya. But as far as the betting window goes, there's no question in my mind where the value is. And that's why I already bet it. And that's why I added even more to it as well. And especially plus 230, plus 240, you got to take a stab at it. Right or wrong, the value is clearly there for me. And I'm going to go in on Romero. I think he can get it done. So hopefully he comes through. No regrets on this bet though. Win or loss, I think it is there. And I would make this all day. So plus 200, I'm with you. Those of you guys that are taking Romero and taking a stab at him, hopefully comes through for us, but the value is definitely there. And I think we are going to see and new crowned here. Finally, Romero getting that middleweight strap. He's been chasing it for a while. He's been so close at times. I think we're finally going to see it happen here. He deserves it. Hopefully he gets it done. My pick is Romero to become the new UFC middleweight champion.
And I'm going to come in the other way. First off, at some point, Romero has to slow down. I mean, the guy is 42 years old. So I just can't imagine that he's going to put on the best performance of his career this late. I mean, perhaps he could be the next Randy Couture, but I refuse to believe in that. I mean, yes, I would say the one thing that has really impressed me throughout Romero's career has been the fact that he really has not been outstruck against just about anybody other than the champion, Robert Whittaker. And he's faced some decent strikers over the course of his career. You know, Machida, Brad Tavares, Souza, Weidman, Rockhold, and he has consistently either outstruck them or at some point he ends up knocking them out. So, I mean, the guy is a freak athlete. He has tremendous power. He has elite level wrestling ability. But if he screws around on the feet too long, I feel like it'll be a repeat of his fights against Whittaker, where yes, he had his moments, and, you know, against Whittaker, especially the second time, he had him hurt. You know, he just couldn't quite put him away, and then Whittaker ended up winning a split decision. So he was close. But I think Adesanya is a better striker than Whittaker. I mean, obvious, based on his performance against Whittaker, where Adesanya was just lit him up and finished him impressively early. So I obviously think that Romero is tougher to put away. We really have only seen Romero even mildly hurt, hardly, maybe once. So, I mean, this guy is physically one of the most durable and athletic fighters that's ever competed in the octagon. So Adesanya is going to have his hands full. Like, I would not be shocked if he has to go all 5 rounds here because Romero is so tough to put away. But that being said, Adesanya is also the type of fighter that is extremely good at landing those strikes that you don't see coming. And those are ones that hurt people. More often than not, it's that strike that you don't see coming because you're not able to brace for it. So then just boom, it just connects, and that's the fight, the punch that hurts you, that knocks you out. And while I think that Romero has fought fighters with more physical punching power, Adesanya, I think, is the best striker that Romero has ever fought. So for me, yes, Romero has enough power to hurt Adesanya on the feet and potentially knock him out at some point, but Adesanya is extremely effective with his stand-up, with offensively. His defense is great. His physical advantage, I mean, 6.5 inches in reach. I think in terms of defense, he's better. In terms of offensive volume, he's better. It could boil down to takedown defense, and Adesanya has pretty elite takedown defense at 85% as well. So I really feel like this guy has the style that can really thwart Romero. Now, can Romero knock him out? Of course. He's got the power. Adesanya, I don't think he's chinny by any stretch, but if he gets clipped with something nasty, he definitely could get hurt and put out. I mean, anybody could against Romero. That's just how dangerous he is. But at least in terms of technique, in terms of where they are at this point in their careers, I mean, you have to side with Adesanya. I feel like he can keep Romero at the end of his punches. I feel like he can mix in some nasty kicks along the way, and he'll force Romero to have to shoot for takedowns from really far away if and when he does shoot for takedowns, which is going to make them easier to stuff. So I think Adesanya keeps this upright. I think he outstrikes and outpoints Romero over the course of 5 rounds, potentially even hurts him and finishes him. But I think the most likely outcome here is Adesanya by decision. So Adesanya is going to be my pick. So that'll do it for our full event breakdown for UFC 248. If we have a free play to give out, make sure to follow at MMAOB Premium on Twitter, because that's where we'll post them first. We can also notify you of our free bets via email alert if you prefer that method. Just send an email to picks@MMAOddsBreaker.com and we'll add you to our free bet mailing list. Special thanks to BetDSI. Good luck, everyone, and hopefully the betting gods are on your side this weekend.